Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare.
There's a lot of things. Now I'm just a boring accountant mom to everyone. No one has any clue what I've been through. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Parents of Reddit, what is most F-up secret you are hiding from your children?
Number 1.
I'm the child of a parent that did something horrible until I was 27. One day when my parents had a domestic dispute, my dad called me just to get back at my mom. He said, "Do you want to know something about your whore mother? She slept with over 30 guys during our first 2 years of marriage." I just sat down and started stuttering. He said, "You know how people have always said you look different than the rest of the kids?" I said, "Yeah. That's because I'm not your dad. Your mom slept with my best friend and you were conceived. Another thing. Your brother, I'm the oldest, belongs to my brother." My mom just bawled in the background without denying it. I just laughed. And then I went into 2 years of therapy. My mom was always a good mom to me. She is still often is, so bogged down with the guilt of her bad choices during that time of her life. Sure, I would have liked to have known earlier, but that's not something I can change. What I can change though is my response. If I cut her off, that would only perpetuate the damage. Sure, I might be justified in doing so, but the only value that would come of that is that I might feel better for a few minutes. I'm not a judge. I don't have the right to judge her. I do have an opportunity though, an opportunity to show mercy and unconditional love in a time where utter failure screams for punishment. If I cut her off, I'm just acting upon bitterness and grudge. It's an act of self-preservation. A pattern of responding that way, self-first, will only result in more pain. In a world full of narcissistic humanism that only puts self first, a remarkable response sticks out like a light in darkness. The argument against responding with forgiveness and love is that people think everyone will walk over you. True. Some may. But most are so caught off guard by the response that they cannot find place in their heart to do so. Will people still walk over you and try to take advantage of you? Sure. But in the world we live in, isn't that already happening? I would argue that this response of returning evil for evil is only adding to the problems of selfishness and hate in the world. A pursuit of self first compounds over and over again into a habit, which causes the issues in the first place. Be a wrench in the gears of this culture by being remarkable. Don't be predictable.
Number 2.
Commenter. That she can't have a relationship with her grandfather because he's a pedophile and I would never trust him. The rest of my family maintains a relationship with him and leans on me hard to open up communication because family comes first. They are absolutely right, my family does come first, which is why my daughter won't ever have to have a relationship with him. He has molested/raped multiple members of my family and I only found out when I was pregnant with my daughter. Without going into too much detail, he also has a mental illness and I've been told that I need to let him have a relationship with my daughter because he's sick and couldn't help it. Person B. You are doing the right thing. I only found out a couple of years ago that my grandfather was a pedophile and molested most of my aunts and maybe uncles. That also explained why about 90% of my uncles and aunts have been raging alcoholics for their entire lives. He wasn't really my grandfather, he took care of my grandmother when her husband left her and their 6 children. To me he was my grandfather and he was my godfather. I just don't understand why my otherwise perfectly fine parents had to stay over at my grandmother's place when he was always around. Nothing ever happened as far as I can remember, but I just don't understand why you would take that risk as a parent, no matter how small that risk might be. I have a daughter of my own now and if that effer would still be alive today I would not let him anywhere near her.
Number 3.
My dad cheated on my mother while she was going through cancer treatments. My mother asked for a divorce, he said go and take the kids. Every Valentine's Day I would receive flowers from my dad and get so happy. My mom would smile and nod and get excited with me. I would call him and thank him. He never sent me flowers. It was my mom all these years. Same thing with birthday cards and Christmas gifts from him. They were never from him, my mom just put his name on them in similar handwriting. Went as far as writing return addresses on mail too. My mom was a superhero of a single parent.
Number 4.
Commenter. It was a secret until recently my mom told me. When she and my dad got divorced, things were very, very messy, and my dad would do shitty things to dodge paying for my care. He ended up owing my mom a couple $1,000s, and my mom was ready to sue. But instead of getting the lawyers involved, and because she knew my dad was not a healthy person to be in my life, she offered him a deal: keep the money, but relinquish custody officially. I'd still get to see him if and when I wanted, but he would give up all legal rights as a guardian. Because he hated paying my mom that much, he took $2,000 over me. Not a life-changing, earth-shattering secret, it's just revealing to know my dad values money more than me. Before anybody casts judgment on my mom, my dad was, and probably is, a piece of human garbage who abused me and allowed me to be abused a few years after this, so I'm 1000% fine with my mom's decision. She's my favorite person in the world, and every single day I'm so lucky to have her in my life. Person B. This is the same secret I am keeping from my son. He believes my husband is his dad because he's raised him for almost 4 out of his 6 years. Besides the fact that his biological father has never been interested in parenting, I am doing this because of him giving his 15-year-old daughter meth and money in exchange for sex. I would rather die the most painful death imaginable than to let a man like that raise my son. I pray I never have to explain this to my child, ever.
Number 5.
Commenter. Adoptive parent of 3 kids, 2 of which are biological siblings and cousins. Found out a year after the adoption that the biological parents were half-siblings who shared the same dad. The bio parents found out after they had the first child and proceeded to have another. The kids are now 16 and 13 respectively and have zero clue that they are a product of incest. Unfortunately, their biological grandpa just passed away, so there very well could be a big reveal coming in the near future. Person B. My best friend is adopted and found out this same thing a few years ago. It wasn't as big of a deal as her parents expected it to be. Yes, it's weird now, but it wouldn't have been that weird even 150 years ago. It's not healthy for multiple generations to do so, but a one-off isn't a big deal.
Number 6.
I was the kid in the scenario. When I was like 12, my dad died of leukemia. He was never around much, so I didn't see him often, but that was never the secret. I actually remember the day he took off and left us. Woke up one morning and there was a pile of new toys on the living room floor with a note from Mom. Anyway, he started coming around when he received the prognosis. We developed something resembling a positive relationship before he died. When he passed, it absolutely destroyed me. I still remember the funeral. I had to be dragged kicking and screaming out of the car because I didn't want to see it. In his will, he left me his car, a Camaro, that I was supposed to get when I turned 16. His parents fought tooth and nail to keep it from me. They were really shitty people, his entire side of the family was, and we eventually just told them to F off and keep the damn thing. Fast forward about 15 years. I found out the guy that died was not actually my dad, he was my brother's dad. My real, biological dad has been living in the next town over 20 minutes from my house, my entire life. My entire family knew about it, except for me. It was why my grandparents fought to keep the car. They knew I was not his son. I still don't know if he knew or not, but I assume so. My maternal grandmother has met him several times in my life. My mom said she never thought it was anything worth digging up. Said she intended for me to never find out. I've still never spoken to him. I know a name and an approximation of where he lives, as of about 10 years ago. Beyond that, I know jack about the guy. Grandma said if I ever want to meet him, she would help me contact him. Dunno if I ever will.
Number 7.
Commenter. I'm hiding a lot of things. I used to be a stripper for 10 years, growing up in an abusive house. I partied hard and used to be part of the NYC and Montreal club scene, but I was kidnapped and taken to another country. There's a lot of things. Now I'm just a boring accountant mom to everyone. No one has any clue what I've been through. Crazy what your kids don't know about you. Person B. My aunt has this crazy past that she's never explained. She'll just make these occasional remarks. For example, we could be talking about an old TV show and she'd say, I remember I used to watch that show back when I was a go-go dancer working in a nightclub. Or she'll refer in passing to her ex-fiancé who is now a Catholic priest. Or mention the book of poetry she once published. But if you try to follow up, she clams up. No one has told me the story of her life in her 20s and early 30s and how she ended up as an IT professional in a dull Midwestern city.
Number 8.
Commenter. My mom kept it a secret that the woman I was named after, her mom, grandma, was stabbed to death by my uncle when my mom was 18. I always suspected my grandma had a tragic death because of how my mom would avoid talking about it, but I didn't know it was that tragic. Person B. My baby brother's middle name is for my grandpa, who was also stabbed to death by my uncle, who is now in a facility for criminally insane people. We didn't find out until we were all adults, and my cousin wrote a self-published memoir about it. She's much older than us and was alive when it happened, unlike us. My baby brother didn't even know the uncle existed. My parents avoided talking about it so much. And, actually, my parents stopped talking to my cousin who published the memoir because they thought she wasn't in a position to be spreading our business around. I'm glad she wrote it, though. Still revisit my copy. My father's sister still writes to my uncle. And my grandmother would visit him, but pretty infrequently, until her Alzheimer's took a very bad turn and she died. My father and his other 2 brothers don't speak to him or about him, though. Person C. Last summer my dad revealed a family secret to me about how my uncle on my mom's side shot his mom, my grandmother, in the stomach when I was a toddler. He was an alcoholic schizophrenic, and apparently thought she was an intruder breaking in when she came home after visiting us for lunch that day. I'm not sure what his sentencing was, but he must have gotten off easy due to his mental state since he was around to babysit my older brother and I some years later.
Number 9.
I'm the kid. Until I was 12 I thought that I knew my bio dad. That man left when I was around 6 and my mom started dating the man I call and accept as dad. I just thought people left and you moved on. On the way to cheerleading practice when I was 12 my grandma said, "You know Steve isn't your real dad." I said no. And that was it. I found out about 4 years later that my mom was having an affair with my bio dad. One night she was brutally beaten and raped. She called bio dad from the hospital and he said he was on his way. She never heard from him again. I am 30. She suspects that he arranged the rape. When I was 18 I got a message on Facebook that started off, "You don't know me but I know you, don't delete this." It honestly sounded like one of those chain letters. Turns out it was my half-sister from bio dad. She and I are now Facebook friends but haven't met in person. I have no desire to meet bio. My actual dad that raised me is literally amazing. I could not have custom ordered a better father. My mom left him when I was 16 after cheating on him with a woman. He sat me down and told me that just because he and my mom broke up doesn't mean that him and I did. He continued to financially support me and never missed a beat. He met his wife 10 years ago and stepped in as dad to her then 5-year-old. He is so badass. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.